Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Friday, July 19th. Welcome back to Stoppage Time. It's that magical time between the end of your week and your weekend. And I'm here in your inbox again, as I am every Friday afternoon, just to share the thoughts on my mind this week. So, in my world this week, I've got some notes over here I'm going to reference every couple of minutes, but I just wanted to talk about a few big things. So, one, I've been super heads down this week, focused on the fundraising for the Storytellers Company, for the company that produces this podcast and our main show over at Entrepreneurial Thinkers, and is going to work on a number of different entrepreneurial storytelling projects across a bunch of different mediums. We're raising a community round. It's called crowdfunding via our partners at WeFunder and Inspire. I'd love to have everybody here that follows and listens on Stoppage Time involved. I've probably already sent you an email invitation about this, but if for some reason you're watching this and you haven't heard about this, just DM us or reach out and we'd be happy to talk about that. So that's where my work has been all week. Like, I've been living inside the email machine nonstop every day, trying to get these messages out to inspire, maybe excite people enough that they want to become investors and partners with us long term, or maybe just kind of small supporters of me and what we're doing. But either way, I'd be grateful to have you on the journey with us. And while that was going on, because my mind is constantly spinning about 7 different things this week, I got thinking about 3 other kind of just ever present things. One is just kind of one reality in our culture, in our cultural moment here in the US this summer. And then 2 is 2 news stories that hit this week, which are kind of close to my heart and are fascinating to me. And as I always try and do, and as my brain kind of always works, it always kind of threads everything back to entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial thinking. So, first topic, the big topic of the day that I want to touch on is politics. And this is like the third rail of podcasting. Either you're on podcasting and you talk about politics and you have some crazy radical extremist views, and that drives the enragement of your audience and therefore the engagement with you. And that's not really what I'm about. So we're not going to talk about it from that context. I'm going to talk more in the macro, just about this notion that I hear so often, and I hear it especially during like highly politically charged times like we're living through in the US right now, or say like our friends in Mexico went through recently with their elections, is this idea that like, oh, I hate politics, right? Or I don't want to talk politics, or I don't do politics, or I don't even vote or participate in the process because I hate politics. It stinks. It's not my thing, right? And I always love to push back on that because frankly, I usually hear that from smart people. I don't surround myself with many idiots or assholes anymore. And when I hear that kind of commentary from smart people, my first instinct is just to react like, how naive are you? Because the truth of where we live in life and how we function societally and how any of us as entrepreneurs function is that we are all political beings. Politics in its root is a Greek word that actually talks about like the coming together of groups of people, organizations, or communities, right, to communicate, collaborate, negotiate over policies or kind of the common good. So fundamentally, if you exist in society, like if you are alive and living somewhere on the planet Earth, you are a political being. You may not like it. You may not enjoy participating in that process. You may not enjoy that collaborative community connection and communication and negotiation that goes on that we all undertake every day in our lives. But you are inevitably a part of it. And if you are an entrepreneur or an entrepreneurial thinker, as an executive, as a leader in your endeavors, you are 1,000% a part of this. And so my attitude about it in general is just that, like anything in life, right? It is better to lean into those things that scare us a little bit. It is better to lean into those things we don't understand and trying to understand them better. And then ultimately just try and find ways that we, with our skills, with our passions, with our abilities, can take advantage of those things that which we do not understand or maybe do not always like or prefer, and get good at them. Right. And so in the context of the entrepreneurial world, we've had a couple of great examples recently in episodes that have dropped both this last week and then coming up next week with 3 guests. So one is the Juan Garavito episode about Moshe Foods and the entrepreneurial thinking and innovation in the chocolate industry. And I say it's an example of politics in real life because although now Juan Carlos is an entrepreneur, and a founder on that side of the table. He spent a good chunk of his career as a policy advocate and a supporter and a government worker in Colombia, building government support and government policy and programming for the entrepreneurial community that has basically birthed one of the most vibrant entrepreneurial economies in Latin America, Colombia. And so, like, there's just one perfect example. A second example would be Lauren Greger, whose show is dropping this week and next Monday across all our channels. You can find it, like it, subscribe it, follow it. You're going to love this episode with Lauren. But Lauren, an active entrepreneur, a founder, a creator, a builder right now of Rent-A-Romper, which is an incredible story in and of itself, comes from a policy background. She was an educator. She was a teacher in the Bronx, worked inside the LA Unified School District, has worked as a communications person in the technology side of a couple of different logistics, transportation industry businesses, is very expert at those things, and is another perfect example of essentially kind of functioning in an executive way inside of a highly charged political culture like the LA Unified School Districts, the second largest public school district in the country, and then transitioning to looking at the world's problems through the entrepreneurial lens that she looks at them through now. But even in discussing the business that she's running now, she talks specifically, very, very specifically about the interactions with other parts of the supply chain, other constituencies that are involved in the processes of running and building and scaling Rent-A-Romper. So inherently, as an entrepreneur, you have to be. As a leader, you have to be an entrepreneurial thinker. You also have to be essentially a competent political negotiator, a political beast. And that is all thoroughly validated by the conversation that'll be coming up in about a week and a week and a half, with is the episode that we'll drop with my friend Robyn Ward here in LA. Robyn is an accomplished investor and an accomplished leadership coach for executives, entrepreneurs, investors. And Robyn drops some incredible wisdom to us in her episode around leadership and around essentially what she's doing is effectively teaching people to become more effective political animals. Right. And again, we don't have to narrowly use the word politics the way that, say, we've defined it in the US or that the media has defined it on a global basis, which is to kind of reduce politics to this horse race like competition between this candidate or that candidate or this party, this party, this party, as if it's like a video game that we're all scoring and monitoring and we're putting on our jerseys and we're picking our favorite sides, which is, of course, not what the Greek word politics means at its apex. It's the modern day 21st century worst iteration of its self-reduction, to only think about it as the horse race politics that goes on. But even in that world of horse race politics, like the people that we elect and participate in, if you're in a free market democracy, which most of us are, those people are our people. They're the people that we put in office. And ultimately, they're the people that we have to collaborate with and coordinate with. And oftentimes as entrepreneurs have to directly sell to and partner with and work with to try and build and scale the businesses that we're building. Famously right now this week, as a sidebar, there's a big social media row, which is all just PR nonsense around Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla and of SpaceX, complaining about the liberal California and the laws in California, which is all just PR bullshit cover for the fact that he would like to have more things go his way. And he likes the politics of a different group of people right now because it better serves his interests and it better puts money in his pocket, right? And so in his example, like, he is famously besmirching the reputation of the entire state of California, where I live and am proud to participate in the process of. And in truth, yet he has literally benefited from, to the tunes of billions of dollars, in state and federal grants, in state and federal investments, in state and federal contracts for Tesla, for SpaceX, for his solar company. Literally, a couple of those companies might not even have survived or existed if not for the generosity and the cooperation and collaboration of the US government or of the state government of California. So to me, I'm like, zip it, close it up. I don't want to hear about your nonsense PR excuses for why you want to move somewhere else where they'll deify you. Like, the truth is, he's a political beast. We're political beasts. We all participate in the same free market, free capitalistic, democratic economy that we live in here. And so let's just be more mature and honest about that before we go squawking about how much politics doesn't serve our needs, right? So anyways, we've got some great examples that are going to help us understand how we can fit how we can approach it, how we can make it a part of our lives and utilize it in a more healthy way as opposed to having it be something we're scared of. But I got two cool news stories that hit this week. We're done with politics. One, my beloved Angel City FC football club, our women's football club here in the NWSL, National Women's Soccer League. You hear me talk about it a lot. This week, it's official now that there is a new majority owner, Willow Bay and her husband, Bob Iger, who is the chairman and CEO of Walt Disney Company. Willow is a multi-decade accomplished professional media person. And recently, this last, I think, 10 years or so, the dean of the USC Annenberg School of Communications at the University of Southern California here in LA. The Willow Bay / Iger group got together and invested a new significant amount of money into the club, as well as took majority interest controlling stake of the club, so they become the representative owners. And why this is a fascinating breakthrough moment is that it set the valuation of the club at a level 250 to 300 million US that is unparalleled in women's sports. It is literally now Angel City is now the most valuable, commercially valuable women's professional sports franchise in the world, which is incredibly gratifying. We've got work constantly to become better at it, to become better on the field, to become better at the operations of it. And that made me pause and think this week, like in a lot of ways, in so many ways, this parallels kind of the journey that we go from startup to early stage company in the startup world, right? And oftentimes your founding management team needs to be bolstered. We need to bring in outside professionals who are good at X, Y, and Z, right? And we bring in sometimes outside money. Those original investors that got us to a certain point, then we bring in additional investors later who bring in new networks, who bring in new possibilities, who bring in new levels of professionalism and expertise. And that's the same thing that this football club is going through. I don't know that necessarily all the pure football fans of the club are going to appreciate that, but that from our standpoint is exactly what's going on. So it's very exciting for me as a fan and a supporter to think that super entrepreneurial thinkers and super long LA believers in Los Angeles' long-term potential over the next 50 to 100 years, like Willow and like her husband Bob, are coming on board with our team. So really, really exciting. Second great news story that hit this week was that the WNBA, as part of the NBA's media negotiations, is about to close on what will essentially be the largest media deal that the WNBA has ever had. So they're going to wind up with a deal that I think is like $2.2 billion over 11 years. So they're going to have roughly, $200 million per year in new media rights revenues passing through, which is obviously going to change the whole dynamic of how women in the WNBA can be paid, the valuations of the franchises, the accessibility of content and games, viewership for us fans. So just two incredible kind of bookend moments in women's sports. You know, the line everybody loves to use now is, everybody watches women's sports. And this week kind of proves this to be truer than ever. But it also, again, made me think of like the WNBA itself is in many ways, although about 20 years old, is in many ways just another entrepreneurial enterprise, right? It is it's a collective entrepreneurial enterprise with like many entrepreneurial enterprises built up inside of it, the clubs, the franchises, and the league. But it is now breaking through to another level of growth in its own journey, right? I'm sure this money will also bring on a level of sophistication of operations at the WNBA and at the individual club franchise level that is going to be more professional, more advanced, more forward-looking, right? More operationally sophisticated, like better experiences for fans. Like everything gets amped up and elevated because of the revenue sources that are going to be available to these clubs now. And again, that's just like growing a franchise or growing a startup, right? Growing an early stage company. So the parallels to our sporting world, the parallels to our political world are constantly present in the life of we as entrepreneurial thinkers and entrepreneurs. So accept that, embrace it, appreciate it, learn from it, right? Take lessons away from it. And maybe it enriches, if you're an entrepreneur who's a sports fan, or you're an entrepreneur who's understands and is more aware of the political environment that you live in, like it'll just make you a better entrepreneur. It'll make you a more acute, sharp, effective entrepreneurial thinker, which is always the goal. So last things last, book recommendation for the week. Since we're in the spirit and the theme of kind of thinking differently about things, traditional things that we interact with in our lives, politics, sports, etc., I wanted to share the book is literally, I think it's called Think Again. and it's by Adam Grant. I can't remember the subtitle, but it was an incredible book. I listened to it first about a year ago, I think, and I've listened to it once again on Audible on my long walks and hikes here in LA. But it's a great tutorial kind of from Adam Grant, the world famous operational organizational psychologist. You all know him. He does TED Talks and on social media, and he's written a bunch of different books that I've loved. But he really helps us to kind of both understand kind of and open our own minds, like understand how we come to our predispositions, how we come to our biases, how we come to our perspectives on the world. But then more importantly is taking that self-awareness and applying it to how we understand other people, and how then through persuasion and influence and argument, we can help to open up other people's minds, right? So how we can literally learn, it's a learned process that we can go through to try and understand how to think differently, and also how to reconsider our own opinions and kind of base bias that we come from in life. So I hope it's a helpful book to your pursuit of your entrepreneurial thinking life. I hope you've enjoyed the context of kind of what's been on my mind this week. It all does tie back, as I said, to the work that we're doing here at the Storytellers Company and with entrepreneurial thinkers, and with this show, Stoppage Time, every Friday. I'm trying to build a media company that enables better, more human stories to be told wherever we can find them. And I'd love to have you come along on that journey with us if you're so inclined. Because it's going to be a lot of fun, and ultimately it's all of you that inspire and provide me with the context and the guidance and the spotlighting of stories that need to be told, and then I just go out and find them and try and tell them. So happy Friday, happy stoppage time. I wish you peace, love, joy, happiness, and this week maybe a little bit of self-awareness and reflection on how we think differently about things that we come at in our lives with our normal inherent biases. And how more things are kind of more embedded in our lives on a daily, regular basis than we might appreciate that they are. And instead of hiding from them and pretending that they're not, let's learn how to embrace them and embed them in who we are so we can all be the best versions of ourselves. So, peace. Happy Friday.